We would like to start off by welcoming everyone to be on this call. Everyone didn't have to take time out to be here today, but we do appreciate the fact that they are now taking time out during this unordinary time. We know that there's been a lot going on in our city. If we could probably take a moment for silence for those that have been lost in these last few months. Everyone should have their copy of the statement that I sent out in reference to the police shootings that we've had. And we would like to really send our condolences to those families. Anybody who loses a life is a horrible thing. So we just want to make sure that everybody understands that we feel the pain of our community, and we just want to make sure that everybody stays safe, because it is very important that we do not go out and put everybody and our family in harm's way during this time. So you do have that statement there from the Greater Indianapolis branch, and we want to make sure that everyone adheres to the order, that we are still under a stay home order. So the police is not, they're not trying not to do their job. They're actually trying to do their job in most instances. So we're going to move on now to our guests. Myla Eldridge, as we know that this is we need to be getting out to vote, and everybody should be getting their ballots in their registration in the mail. And she's going to give us an update on what we need to do to get registered, to not get registered, but to get out to vote. Myla? They're gonna unmute you. And for some reason or another, Jessica's still up on my screen. We need to.
All right. All right.
There we go.
We're getting used to this new norm, huh?
Yes. You seem to have it down pat.
Oh, I think that is so not true. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. It's good to be actually safe right now, and to be at home. I would like to thank you for allowing me just a little time just to speak about the upcoming election, the presidential primary election. There is so much going on in the USA, in our county, and in our city, that it's could be difficult to focus on the primary election, but elections are essential, and we need to make it a priority. Although, like I said, we're living in a time that none of us have ever seen before, but we need to participate in the democracy that serves us. And with that being said, I hope everyone is being smart and staying home and washing your hands and doing everything that is required of us at this time to help control. I like that, Nichelle, that thumbs up. But during the COVID-19 pandemic, this election is going to look very different because we don't want to make the health crisis worse, right? So we need to take the necessary safety precautions since we are going to be having in-person voting. Under Indiana law and the state directives for the 2020 primary election, Marion County is required to have 3 satellite early voting locations and 22 vote centers, on election day. That raised substantial challenges for my office. Number one, recruiting poll workers, right? Who would want to risk catching the virus, right, on election day or prior to? Number two, obtaining enough personal protective equipment for our poll workers to work, and then number three, finding so many facilities where appropriate social distancing can be practiced. But even putting those logistics aside, there is no way to ensure the conduct of both a safe and competent election with that many sites, because it is just impossible for us to know what the election day turnout is going to be. I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know, like, what will the volumes of each vote center, you know, have. I don't know how many voters will be participating on election day. So I was in favor of Marion County having an all-male primary. So as I stated, that did not happen, and now we have to have an election on June the 2nd. So with that being said, I just want to be clear that this whole process has been very, very interesting to me, because I believe that the decision to conduct a substantial in-person voting on June 2nd misunderstands the extent of the public health danger for Marion County. Marion County is, I mean, we're the epicenter, right, of COVID-19 in Indiana. So to me, it was very important that we did not risk the lives of people, the residents under COVID-19. So with that being said, I'll delve right into the PowerPoint presentation. Offices on the 2020 primary ballot. Washington Township has a couple public questions. President of the United States, Governor is on the ballot. United States Representative, District 5 and 7. So those of you that live in 7, Congressman Carson is your representative, and those of you that live in District 5, Susan Brooks is your representative. Indiana State Senator, Districts 28, 30, 32, 33, 34, 35, and 36. Indiana House of Representatives are on the ballot. Judge of the Circuit Court, Marion County Treasurer, Marion County Coroner, Marion County Surveyor, Township Advisory Board, Democratic Convention Delegates, and Republican Convention Delegates. Those are all the offices that will be on the ballot. And I just would advise everyone to do your homework and go to the voter information portal and just educate yourselves about each one of those races and the individuals that are running for office for this primary election. And also remember, and I know I'm like preaching to the choir, that you guys know this is a primary election. Democrats are voting for Democrats and Republicans are voting for Republicans. Next slide, please. When and where to vote early in person. Again, we are required to in-person vote. I wouldn't advise it, but since by law we have to do it, we will have 3 early voting locations under COVID-19. In the past, we have had about 8. Again, we do not want to spread the virus, and it's just important to, I think for this election, to have less is best. So we will have an early voting location at Beech Grove High School, Broad Ripple High School, and the City County building in the clerk's office. All early voting locations will be election day vote centers. So these locations will also be open on election day, June 2nd. The hours for early voting, Beech Grove from 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. and Tuesday, May the 26th to Friday, May 29th. This is the weekend prior to the election that we will have early voting. In the City County building, the hours are different than the hours at Beech Grove High School and Broad Ripple High School, because by law, we are required to be open on that Monday, which I call it election eve, until noon. So a voter can come to the election, to the clerk's office on Monday, June the 1st, and in-person early vote. Next slide. Election day vote centers, again, I had shared that we are required to have 22 vote centers on election day. And the next slide will show you the names of those vote centers and also the address of where those vote centers are located. You can go to the next slide. Okay. Next slide. Vote by mail in the 2020 primary election is best under the current pandemic. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, extra precautions have been made to make voting by mail available to all voters. I'm sure most of you have already received your absentee application in the mail, not the ballot. And we have a tendency to get those words confused, application and ballot. First you receive the application, then you receive your ballot. For this primary election, because of the pandemic, there is a no excuse absentee voting rule that allows for a voter to not to have an excuse to vote. So you can vote just because you want to. All registered voters, as I stated, will receive an absentee application by mail. And if you don't receive an application in the mail, don't hesitate to call the election board and request an application. Voting by mail is the safest way to vote during the pandemic. Complete the application, you sign it, mail it back using the self-addressed stamped envelope that was provided. We will then, once we receive your application, we'll process it and we will mail a voter a ballot. Visit the vote.indy.gov site for information on absentee voting. And I'll take any questions after the presentation because it's just a short presentation. Next, how to vote absentee by mail. Make sure you are registered to vote. And if you're not registered, then you missed the deadline, which was May the 4th. But if you are registered, I would just make sure that I would call our voter registration office and just confirm that your registration is up to date so that you don't have any problems or we don't have any problems when we receive your application and to process your application and to mail you a ballot. So it's just, I would be just make sure that your registration is up to date and current. Number 2, complete the application for your absentee ballot. Return your completed application. This date is very important. By Thursday, May the 21st. All applications, we must have all applications back by Thursday, May the 21st, in order for us to process those applications and mail your ballots to you. We cannot accept an application after May 21st. Ways to return your application, you can bring it to, you can hand deliver it to the Election Board Service Center located at 3737 East Washington Street, or you can mail it, or you can email your application to our website at, email address at elections@indy.gov. However, I'm gonna say this too, that if you are going to vote by mail and time is of the essence, I would not risk it and I would not wait on the mail, right? I would not. I would hand deliver my application. If you think that you're not going to make, if you're not going to make it in a reasonable amount of time putting that application in the mail, I would not risk it. I would not risk it. I would bring that application to the Election Board Service Center, or I would email it. You can also fax your application to 317-327, that's interesting, 4815. Preview your ballot at indy.gov.vip. Receive your ballot in the mail and cast your ballot. Your ballot will arrive to you in the mail after you send in your application. Cast your vote anytime before June 2nd. That's another critical date. Mail your ballot back before June 2nd, because by law, we're not allowed to count any ballots that are received after June 2nd. So we have actually a great relationship with the post office, and we go to the post office and we pick up every ballot or every application and ballot before June the 2nd. And especially on June 2nd in regard to ballots, because we want to make sure that every voter's ballot is counted, right? The election board must receive your ballot before or on June the 2nd. Your ballot will not be open before noon. We are a central county, so that means that all ballots are opened on election day and counted. You can also mail or hand deliver your ballot to the Election Board Service Center. But again, it has to be there before noon on June the 2nd. So once again, I would not risk it. If you have, if you voted or if you are voting by mail and you have received your ballot, I wouldn't put it in the mail and risk us not getting it and it not being counted if you don't think that we'll have it before noon on June the 2nd, okay? And you can also check the status of your ballot at indianavoters.in.gov. Next slide. All righty. Now, I was given a few questions prior to the Zoom meeting. And so what I would like to do is take this time to answer those questions. And then after I answer those questions, I'll answer any other questions. Is that all right, Madam Chair? If I go ahead and answer the questions that were given to me earlier? Okay, all right, great. All righty, first question. The first question is, what is the best strategy for convincing women to vote? For me, I think because this year marks 100 years since the passing of the 19th Amendment, which granted women the right to vote. We have the chance to elect women to local and statewide offices. What a better way, I think, to commemorate 100 years of women voting in our nation. I also think that this is an opportunity for women to decide on who the next president is going to be. We have the opportunity to select and confirm our Supreme Court justices and who will control our legislatures during a pivotal time in our nation's history. So those are some reasons why I, as a female or as a woman, am participating in the democracy that serves me. Some of these questions I probably answered, but I'm gonna go ahead and answer them again. The answers were actually in the presentation. So voting locations in Pike Township, we will have 2 voting locations in Pike Township. One will be at Guyan Creek Middle School and the other one is at Eastbrook Elementary School. And again, keep in mind that due to the pandemic, this election and probably the election in the fall, it's not going to look like a normal election. And I'm not really sure moving forward, depending on the virus and how quick or how soon they come up with a vaccine or just to get this under control. I'm not really sure what our elections are going to look like. Hopefully this isn't the new norm for us. Hopefully we'll be able to go back to the way that we were voting. But for now, I think this is the best way for us to have a primary election to cut down on spreading the virus and just keeping people safe. Another question is, will Marion County have early voting this year? 8 satellite locations. Yes, we will have early voting, but like I said, due to the pandemic, we have to cut down. And in regard to social distancing, we have to continue to maintain social distancing. So I think, like I said, this is just a better way. Less is best just for this while we're operating under this pandemic. Are there plans for early voting locations and where would they be? I've already covered that. Marion County will have 3 early voting sites again at Beech Grove High School, Broad Ripple High School, and in the clerk's office in the city county building. When should we expect our absentee ballot? It depends on when you mail it. Again, if you mail it right away, we're working very, very hard. Actually, I have had staff working through the pandemic. They didn't get to work remotely from home. So they have been working very hard processing applications. We actually have been processing absentee applications like maybe 5,000 a day, and we're trying to get up to processing 7,000 a day. So if you get your application mailed, mailed, we have been turning around. I would say 2 to 3 days, you should receive a ballot in the mail. And if you don't, you can always call, or you can go to that email address that I shared with you earlier to track your application and your ballot. This question is, when will all government workers work in office? I don't have an answer, but I will continue to work closely with the Marion County Health Department and public safety officials to determine when my staff will return to the office. I think it's difficult to say that all government workers will work in the office. Again, I don't know if this could possibly be the new norm under the pandemic, because again, we really need to continue to maintain social distancing and not to gather until we get control of the pandemic or of the virus. And until those numbers decrease and begin to go down, it's best that we do what our public safety officials are advising us to do. So again, just know, I was not in favor of in-person voting. I'm not in favor of it. And I advise anyone to, hey, vote by mail. Don't go to the polls on election day. Don't, you know, I just think that you're jeopardizing, risking getting the virus or even spreading the virus. And they're telling us to stay home, right? They're still telling us to stay home. So I would advise everyone to vote by mail and stay home. How will you ensure that workers and voters will be protected from the virus? Again, voting by mail right now is the safest way to vote. It promotes, you know, safety. I can't say it enough. Social distancing, and it's just it's critical that I feel that we stay home and not vote in person for early voting or on election day. I will say that I did hire a team to assist me with PPE on how much personal protective equipment that we need. And my #1 goal is to make sure that not only my employees that have been working consistently under the pandemic, but for anybody that is working the polls, to make sure that they have masks, gloves, hand sanitizer. We have a solution that we will be using to wipe off voting machines. So again, we're going to do everything that we are supposed to do. But if you want to be safe and you want to do what's best and you want to be smart, the best thing to do is to vote by mail and stay home. Let me see. Oh, last question is, are volunteers needed? Will the office be able to handle load from the mail-ins? We always need volunteers. We probably more so than ever will need volunteers on election day, election evening, to count all those absentee ballots. So we would love to have anyone that is interested in counting absentee ballots on election night. We welcome them. I've been pretty, I'm gonna say blessed, that I was fearful that we would not have poll workers that would want to work the polls on election day. But you know what? God is truly good to me, because people have been calling and saying, we want to help you. We want to see you succeed. We want Marion County to succeed. And we're doing really well in regard to poll workers, but we could use absentee ballot counters on election night. So with that being said, Madam President, that is the end of my presentation, and I have answered all the questions that were given to me prior to the Zoom meeting. And if there are more questions for me, I am more than happy to try my best to answer them.
I don't have any questions for you. You always do a terrific job, and we love to have you. And I think it was very important for people to get this information from you. That way that the questions that were put before you, you answered them very well. If anybody in this group or with the NAACP is willing to work, we will make sure that we will do the best that we can to get you that help that you need. And you can call on us at any time to do whatever you need to help support you and get it in the Get Out to Vote effort.
Thank you. I appreciate the partnership.
Madam President?
Yes.
Crystal, this is Jody. There are a couple of questions that also came in through the chat, if I could.
Please do.
Read those. Okay. So Mila, one of them is, are you hiring vote counters for Marion County? Do you anticipate a large number of votes to be counted after Election Day?
That's a very good question. And yes, I do. However, I do have a great team, and we're going to do our best to get all the absentee ballots counted as quick as we possibly can. But to be safe, yes, I do believe that we will be counting absentee ballots after Election Day, because we've never had an influx of absentee ballots like we will have, or we have had for this election.
So are you going to be hiring additional people to help with that, or are you going to try to use it with your existing staff? I think that was one of the questions.
Oh, no, that's why I said earlier that we are recruiting. I call them volunteers, but they still get paid to count absentees on election night.
Okay. Another question is, will Marion County continue to allow voting by mail long-term after the pandemic? This will make it much easier for residents to vote.
That's an excellent question. And I support vote by mail. I think it would be great for Marion County to be a vote by mail county. However, that is something that has to be taken up with our legislatures. They will have to decide if Marion County can be a vote by mail only county. But again, for this, for under the pandemic, I feel that it is the best way for Marion County to vote. Again, we don't want to make the crisis worse by not staying home. But that's something that, like I said, our legislatures would have to excuse me, to decide on whether the could become an all mail county, or if Marion County. Now, and I will share this with you, that I lobbied for Marion County to have an all mail primary, because Marion County is if not, I believe, the largest county in the state of Indiana. And again, we have the highest number of cases, right? We're an epic county, or an epic state. So I lobbied for Marion County to have an all-mail primary, and I wasn't successful, as you see, in getting that accomplished. So to answer your question, I think an all-mail election is good for some people, but some people just like, going to the polls. But I'm not against an all-mail if Marion County were to become an all-mail county. If that makes sense.
A couple more questions. Thank you. Will the sites for early voting on June 2nd be large enough so residents will not have to stand outside in the rain?
We did our best to select the vote centers that could accommodate a lot of people, voters, like, say, for example, gymnasiums, churches. So hopefully we did a pretty good job at selecting vote centers that will accommodate Marion County voters.
Okay, great. And we did share your slides ahead of time with the people who pre-registered for the meeting. Is it okay for us to put these slides up on our website and share them otherwise?
Absolutely.
Great, thank you. I think those are the questions that I've seen.
Okay. All right. So that's great. Thank you very much, Mila, for your time. of course, I'm looking at chats and so forth to try to keep this moving. So thank you. We really appreciate your time and having you on the call to bring us that information. If there's any updates that you think that you need to give us, we'd be happy to get them on the website, as well as Jody said, we'll be sharing your slides.
Okay.
So,
Madam Chair, if I could
yes.
though, just end with this. Seriously, this is real and it's serious.
Mhm.
So you guys that are listening, and I know I'm probably preaching to the choir, but this, wash your hands. Wash your hands, wear your mask, stay home if it's not an essential errand, because we've got to do our best to not spread the virus, right? We have got to do our best. And I'm gonna say this, stay home and vote by mail. I promise you that the system is safe and your ballot will be counted as long as we get it in time. But be safe, be careful, and abide by the public safety rules. Thank you.
And thank you, Mila. Thank you very much.